Good afternoon. My name is Danny Plugger. I'm the Executive Director of Virginians for High Speed Rail. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. We have a great program connecting the Tar Heel State, and I want to thank Jason for joining us for this afternoon's Town Hall webinar. We are very excited about today's program and our entire series. The purpose of our virtual Town Hall series is to give Virginians and our supporters across the United States an opportunity to hear from and engage with the leading transportation decision makers and thinkers in the room today. This Town Hall series is made possible at no cost to participants through the generosity of WSP, iCamera, and the FACE companies. Thank you for your support. Sponsorships opportunities are still available if you or your company are interested in supporting this initiative. One bit of housekeeping, please make sure to send all your questions via the chat box at any point, and I'll address them to our presenter at the appropriate time. And know that the program will be posted on our YouTube channel sometime next week. It's kind of hard to imagine where we are today because of where we were just a handful of years ago. But rail ridership across the Southeast is growing rapidly and has pretty much exceeded pre-pandemic levels. North Carolina and Virginia are really leading the way, and today we get to learn about all the great work and exciting things that are happening in North Carolina. And so with that, I have the pleasure of introducing Jason Orthner. Jason is the Rail Division Director in the North Carolina Department of Transportation, a position he has held since June of 2018. Mr. Orthner has been with NCDOT since 2000 and has worked in railroad project and program management for well over 2 decades. Prior to becoming Rail Division Director, he most recently held the position of Manager of Design and Construction and was responsible for leading the railroad programs and projects, including large components of the federally funded Piedmont Improvement Program, North Carolina's largest multi-year railroad infrastructure program. As Rail Division Director, Jason is responsible for leading statewide rail initiatives, including safety, planning, engineering, construction, and freight and passenger programs, including state-supported passenger rail services. He holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from North Carolina State University and is a registered professional engineer with a certified public manager. And so, Jason, please take it away.
Thank you, Danny, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here and be able to speak to what we're doing here in North Carolina in the rail space. And just as a matter of sort of the outline of what I'm going to present on today, I'm going to give an overview of what our division here at North Carolina Department of Transportation does, go into some of the major programs that we have, what I would call bread and butter in our various responsibilities, and then get into our passenger rail program and our major projects to connect both the Southeast and North Carolina. So I always like to begin with our mission statement here at North Carolina's Rail Division. That is the safe and efficient movement of people and goods on North Carolina's railroads through freight, passenger, and safety programs with the ever important mission of supporting job creation and economic growth in our state. We have the great responsibility of managing the North Carolina Department of Transportation's activities with the state's railroad system, which is nearly entirely privately held. And we have very good relationships with about 24 short line railroads, 2 major class 1s with CSX and Norfolk Southern, the North Carolina Railroad Company, which is the oldest surviving state-owned corporation in North Carolina, and many other partners across the state as we advance our projects and programs. The system is very well intact from its history of development over the last almost 200 years. And we also, in this system, own about 110 miles of preserved rail corridor, some of it already being put back in service. But that's another important component of our mission here, is to keep this network intact and as vibrant and moving forward as we can. One of the things that we've done over the last couple of years is evaluate the economic impact of the North Carolina's rail system on our economy here in the state. And what we determined through this analysis, which we did with the Institute of Transportation Research and Education, which is a component of the North Carolina State University, we found that the system contributes about $20 billion in our to our economy here in North Carolina on an annual basis, and supports about 88,000 jobs, both direct and indirectly. $990 million in state and local tax revenue, with about currently 860 businesses loading onto the rail and 116 actual rail-served or rail businesses in our state. So it is definitely an economic engine of in our state, or the rail system. And this is really across all the different facets of the rail industry here in North Carolina, which includes the railroads, the private railroad companies, our passenger rail services, the railroad supply industry, and the railroad businesses that are impacted by the system. One of the things that we like to talk about is about half of our budget here at NCDOT Rail Division is dedicated to one large program called the Freight Rail and Rail Crossing Safety Improvements. And this program was established by our General Assembly back in 2013 with the goals of improving rail safety through crossing safety improvements, modernizing the rail system's track infrastructure, supporting economic development, ensuring that the things that can be hauled by rail are hauled by rail through freight diversion, increasing the freight capacity of the rail system, and then preserving the rail corridors across our state. It's an incredibly important program to us, and it has done a lot over the last approximate 11 years that we've had this program in implementation. Over $1.2 billion in private capital investment that's generated by the matching funds that we provide through the program. 34 new industry expansion projects, over 2,500 jobs provided through the program, and then lots of bridges, railroad crossing improvements, railroad crossing closures, and then supporting our ports here in North Carolina, all part of this initiative. So this is a major element of what we do here, and you can see the impact of this program throughout our state. We have had projects with railroads, industries, and other entities, including counties and municipalities, to really bring some great value and benefit to the rail system and grow the economy both on a state level and on a regional and local level. The other thing we do in our state, as at the rail division, is we have oversight of the all of the public crossings in our state. We manage those both from an inventory perspective, but also manage both the federal and state programs to improve crossings, both add warning devices, close crossings, and grade separate others. So we've closed about 314 since 1993, removing those permanently as exposure to the rail system. Currently, we have about 20 crossing consolidation or closure projects ongoing, 16 grade separations, primarily funded through our state transportation improvement program, and then 65 grade crossing warning device projects, primarily funded through our Section 130 funds. And every year we're inventorying through our system about 1,200 crossings, and then working with USDOT to prioritize those to go into the system. So this is really the bread and butter type of work that our division is doing. So I'll turn to our very successful passenger rail service next. I've shown this map before. This represents both our state-supported services, which is the Piedmont and the Carolinian, as well as the routes of 4 intercity long-distance routes that Amtrak operates through our state, and then connecting Amtrak throughway coach service to communities in the eastern part of our state. We did since the last time I presented to this group, we've added another round trip to the Piedmont. So we are now at 4 round trips of the Piedmont and 1 round trip of the Carolinian every year. That's 10 round trips between Charlotte and Raleigh, which is sort of our main or the heart of our corridor. and continuing to look at opportunities to expand that further. It's taken us a while to get to this point. One of the things that I like to demonstrate is, we've developed our program incrementally over many, many years. The Carolinian service actually started in 1990 as our first major sponsored service, and has been operating continuously since that time frame. That really grew out of a blue ribbon task force under Governor Jim Martin at the time that led to the implementation of that service. And since then, we have done a number of infrastructure and operating programs to grow the service, with the first step being the introduction of the Piedmont in 1995, the first round trip of that. A series of improvements we made between Raleigh and Charlotte, with a heavy amount of emphasis between Raleigh and Greensboro. We call it the North Carolina Improvement Program, that reduced the travel time by about an hour, down from 4 hours to around 3. And then the Piedmont Improvement Program, which was our largest federally funded program up until now with the S-Line. So as we look forward, obviously the corridor ID program and on the Raleigh to Richmond corridor over the S-Line really is our major initiatives for expansion of passenger rail service as we head into the next phase of improvements. As Danny mentioned at the beginning of his talk today, ridership is at record levels in Virginia and North Carolina. In North Carolina, on our state-supported Piedmont and Carolinian services, we have seen we were close to 721,000 riders for the calendar year ending in December of last year, and that represents a 55% increase in ridership since 2019, which was the first or the last full year before the pandemic. So we see a dramatic increase in the folks using our service. Over in each year, we're just expecting more and more riders. It's exciting to see this growth, and it's one of our great litmus tests for the success of our program and our opportunities in the future to expand passenger rail into other parts of our state in the Southeast. One aspect of our program that we've really leaned into over the last several years is through our marketing communications. We have been working closely with NCDOT's communications group to really grow our presence in the digital space. And we've hired a very successful person that Liz Mackham, who is handling our outreach and engagement, specifically our digital engagement. And we have just recently learned that our level of impressions and searches that are related to our brand, which is NC by Train, has just increased so significantly. You can see there with the 41.5 million Google searches on our for our services, as well as the 904% growth that represents. So just a lot of great content being driven by that group, and they work very closely with our operating team and with our teams that do the planning for our services to make sure that we get the word out. And we attribute a lot of our ridership gains both to having a great product, but also being able to talk effectively about it through our digital means. We've also been doing a lot of special event trains. Annually, we provide service to our North Carolina State Fair here in Raleigh. That is a very successful event, but we've also done events such as the Santa Train, where we bring Santa Claus on the train in December, really get a chance to engage both parents and kids through that event. And then Lexington Barbecue Festival, which is one of the largest barbecue festivals in the Southeast, drawing well over 200,000 participants in the October timeframe. So special stops there. And these special trains have really drawn a lot of attention to our service and what we can do as far as providing great service transportation and access to these events for large numbers of people. Also last year, we ran our train to the U.S. Open Men's Championship at Pinehurst. And this was one of the most successful special events we've had to date. Ticket sales went live just about 2 weeks prior to the event and sold out completely within that time period. We had over 2,600 passengers, saving a lot of car trips to the location, and also addressing some real challenges with parking and other types of issues at the event itself. The train pulled up right to the clubhouse, and so the folks that bought the ticket here were able to really access this event very effectively. And I will say that the cafe service was popular both for the morning trip and the evening trip by all patrons, and got a lot of folks that wouldn't normally take the train to experience our service. So very, very successful event. We will be holding a new event, and will be announced soon for a NASCAR race down in near Rockingham, North Carolina, in April. So stay tuned for that. We're excited to announce that here in the next couple of days. So we continue to evaluate our service, continue to look at opportunities to expand our number of frequencies and services. We are in the planning for another Piedmont round trip right now to service the Raleigh to Charlotte market. And so working with our partners in the communities all up and down the corridor, we are beginning an outreach process where we'll be holding open house events, online surveys, and creating content for folks to interact as we plan for the future services. Really trying to hear from the public and users of the service exactly what they want to see in terms of ridership, or in terms of location, amenities, and things that are important to them, so that we can continue to build this service. So those are coming up the spring of this year, and we're encouraging communities all up and down the route to get involved. We're excited about bringing new equipment to our Piedmont and Carolinian trains. As you probably are aware, our Piedmont fleet is one of the oldest in the nation, using legacy equipment from the 1950s, 60s, and locomotives from the 1980s. It takes quite a bit to maintain that fleet and continue to find or develop parts to keep it in service. So we're excited that our two train services will be supported by Arrow, the Amtrak's new Siemens built fleet of trains. They're fixed fleets, and we anticipate those trains coming to our services in the 2027 to 2032 timeframe. With that is also an exciting development in North Carolina, and that was the site selection by Siemens Mobility for their intercity passenger rail equipment railcar manufacturing site in Lexington, North Carolina. $220 million facility that will employ more than 500 jobs here in central North Carolina. It's really a high-tech factory to build the nation's intercity passenger trains of the future. We're excited to have it in North Carolina. And the facility will be probably the last stop as the various parts of the Aero trains are built. So we anticipate this facility being in service this year, based on our conversations with Siemens, and then the rollout of the first trains in the next year or so. So stay tuned. This is a very exciting development for us. Here's some pictures that we took back in February 2025 that continue to make tremendous progress on the construction of that facility, including a major bridge, as you can see in the upper right corner, that accesses the facility off of the NS-NCR main line. Talk a little bit about Charlotte Station. This project is our sort of major, yet to be touched location to really drive a good experience for our passengers at the busiest location in North Carolina. We've done great work to nearly every station in our state where our current services provide. This is the one that's really sort of the last major station upgrade that we need to do under the current stations. If you've been to the current station, it's basically outside of uptown Charlotte. It does not have good accessibility, and the site can be prone to flooding and major weather events. It's undersized for the busiest station in North Carolina. This is our busiest station. So the new uptown location puts the station right next to the Panthers stadium and right next to the business district in Charlotte. Direct access to jobs, transit, retail, commercial, entertainment, and housing. And we anticipate, as a result of the relocation of the station, a major increase in ridership and a capacity to increase our services over what they are today as well. We actually, North Carolina DOT, our rail division, completed the first phase of the project on time and on budget. That was to construct the platform, bridges, signal infrastructure, tracks, and emergency access to the platform under a first major phase of the project. So that is ready to go. You can actually see it there in the photo presented. We've run a test train to that site, and know it's good for service. And right now we're working with the city of Charlotte on a major effort to build the infrastructure to board the trains at this location. So upfit of the platform and concourse, as well as a station head house, is what we're working on right now. Looking at both early and final station development for this site, as the city is working with both the 3P partner and other stakeholders to deliver this very important element. And we hope to see this come to fruition in the very near term future. I did want to present real quick, as part of the uptown Charlotte Gateway Station location. We have a component project that's associated with that called the Charlotte Passenger Rail Facility. This is a facility just to the south and west of the Charlotte Gateway Station site, where we will be facilitating the maintenance of the trains, both in near term and the aero trains that will operate over this segment. That project is its first phase is complete. It was completed under the PIP program. And we're working with both the city and Amtrak and other stakeholders to bring about the next phase that will support the aero trains that will come to this location. One important thing is that the Gateway Station and the passenger rail facility will be connected through separate tracks from the main line, so the trains that access the facility don't ever have to get back on the main line and interact with freight traffic through there. So it creates a tremendous degree of efficiency over the current operation, where our trains hold on the main line for periods of time at the old station location. All right, turning to the Southeast Corridor and the S line. This is a graphic showing our sort of connection to the Commonwealth and sort of all the different line segments both through current service planning and through Corridor ID that we're currently evaluating for our various corridors, with the trunk line being the Washington, D.C. to Richmond to Raleigh to Charlotte corridor. S line being the very middle of that critical key Southeast corridor. As we've mentioned before, this line segment will both create a significant time savings by creating a more dedicated passenger route between Richmond and Raleigh, which allows for up to an hour and a half of travel time savings, increased reliability because of the ability to operate that independent from the very congested freight corridors, creating new rural and urban connections, economic development opportunities in the communities that it will serve, as well as the safety benefits that we're going to realize from giving folks more access to the intercity passenger rail network, less exposure to highway accidents, and then freeing up the highway system for those future trips so that there's more fluidity potentially on the highway system. So lots of opportunities here for us in building out this system. You'll notice on the map that we've included some of the extensions both in Virginia and North Carolina that I'll talk about a little bit later on when I talk about corridor ID, but notably Salisbury to Asheville service, Greensboro, Raleigh to Winston-Salem through Greensboro, additional service to Fayetteville, and then to Wilmington as well. The S-line, we call it the missing link in the system because it is what builds the capacity, reliability, and frequency of service needed to better connect the Commonwealth and our state and really the Southeast to the Northeast. We've won about $1.2 billion in federal grants to plan, design, and build projects so far. Among those are the Raleigh to Richmond PE, which is 30% engineering between Raleigh and Richmond that we're working with the Commonwealth on, and the BPRA specifically. And then the construction of the first segment of this line awarded in 2023 from Raleigh to Wake Forest, the most complex piece of the corridor, most urbanized piece of this portion of the corridor is that Raleigh to Wake Forest segment. So those are the elements that are funded, and we're continuing to seek opportunities for funding for construction from Wake Forest to Richmond as we continue to phase the project and build out opportunities to extend service as we finish. So as I mentioned, our grant was announced for the Raleigh to Wake Forest segment at the end of 2023. That allowed us to really enter into a series of both match-funded projects as well as the engineering of the project. So we've already broken ground on the first project of the S-line portfolio of projects, and that is the Durant Road grade separation in North Raleigh. That project is now under construction. We'll build a bridge over the track at that location on a multi-lane highway. Additionally, New Hope Church Road, also in North Raleigh, has been let to contract, and it will begin construction shortly here in 2025. We've also been hard at work with the communities all up and down the S-line, the 7 communities that you see represented there, both north of Raleigh and south of Raleigh, looking at station sites for those locations. And in January, a $13.2 million build raise grant was awarded for the development of the Wake Forest station, which is critical to the S-line, the first phase of the S-line project, to make sure we've got a really solid station for that first station about 18 miles north of Raleigh. We've completed the surveys in North Carolina, and we have the preliminary engineering firms on board to begin the process of the detailed design. We are waiting, as many are all across the country, and including us in the Commonwealth, on grant obligations and grant progression for the various work that we have to do. But we anticipate those shortly in second quarter 2025. Here are some of the concepts that were developed by our station and mobility hub teams, showing the different locations, like, for instance, Apex, which is south of Cary in North Carolina, Franklinton and Wake Forest, which are north of Raleigh, Norlina, close to the border with the Commonwealth, Henderson, Sanford, and Youngsville. All of these communities have been very much engaged with the effort to really design places that fit well into their communities and create great economic opportunity as they seek to connect with the rail network through these stations as well as other transportation modes. A little bit of detail here on the Raleigh to Wake Forest project that's funded for construction. It represents a total of about $1.4 billion worth of work. You can see the route and the alignment there. As I mentioned, this is a very urbanized corridor with the first about 2-mile segment being incredibly urban and coming out of Raleigh to the point where we're building basically a new alignment for the first approximate 2 miles coming out of Raleigh, so we don't interfere with freight operations for CSX, NS, and the short lines. Lots of great, there are about 11 grade separations that we are going to be completing with this work, as well as 18 miles of rail corridor construction. And final design, right-of-way, and construction are the elements that we'll be building as part of this. Just kind of breaking this down a little bit further, I mentioned that we have the preliminary engineering for the full Raleigh to Richmond under a CRISI grant that was awarded back in 2022. We have awarded the designs for those for the both the track and the roadway components of that project. So you can see here that we've broken into segments, and we have different design teams working on, in this case, the rail network segments. And on this slide, you can see the highway designers that we've brought to bear here. So about 40 engineering firms engaged with us right now on this particular element of the project. And I won't list them all, but there's a lot of work to be done. So the economic impact, we actually finished about a year and a half ago, we finished a economic impact assessment of just what this first phase of work accomplishes from an economic impact standpoint, and determined about $1.38 billion in the 8-year period from now until 2033, due to the work around just in the implementation phase of this work. Does not even consider the ongoing economic impact of this project to the regions, both in mobility and what they do around their stations, and just the flexibility of the citizens and the amenity this brings to their citizens. But you can see there over 8,000 job years, which is an employment of an individual over 1 year, and 42.5 million in state and local tax revenue gained just for this one Raleigh to Wake Forest project. Before I go into the corridor ID slides I wanted to speak to this as well. We've been partnering with the North Carolina Railroad Company and Norfolk Southern on a project to make improvements between Greensboro and Raleigh on the North Carolina Railroad Company corridor. And a project that will basically build new sidings, some new double track, included a major grade separation, rail replacement, bridge analysis, and several other items that go along with it. About a $106 million grant, about a $180 million total project to make some significant improvements that will both improve freight mobility, but also provide for the opportunity for additional passenger rail services. And you can see, NCR has committed about $17.8 million in capital improvements on their line, as well as Norfolk Southern with $13 million, and our $34 million commitment for the major grade separation of Cornwallis Road here in RTP. We anticipate construction on this particular project to start later this year, and NCRR is leading this effort in partnership with us and Norfolk Southern. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about our intercity rail expansion opportunities through FRA's Corridor Identification and Development Program. Very exciting program for us that has allowed us to really engage with communities all across our state who have been asking, can we get intercity passenger rail, to our community as well? So we submitted early in 23 for 12 corridors across our state, folks that we had knew that were interested in, or corridors that we knew that had communities that were interested in service, as well as being very thoughtful about the impacts to the freight rail system and trying to ensure that the corridors we were proposing would be complementary to the freight system. So of the 12, 7 were awarded. You can see them listed there. 5 are intrastate corridors, and 2 are are interstate, Charlotte to DC and Charlotte to Atlanta being the two interstate corridors that are putting us in coordination with Virginia to the north, as well as South Carolina and Georgia to the south. Very exciting. We are fully in step one of this program, which is the scope, schedule, budget phase of the project. We do plan on resubmitting, perhaps in slightly different format, the 5 that were not selected in our original round of corridor ID, and we're continuing to do feasibility on those corridors as we prepare them for future CID applications. Many of you may have seen this slide from FRA before. Essentially, we are in the development stages, the corridor ID program stages of these corridors, with the exception of some very mature projects like S-Line and the work we've already completed between Raleigh and Charlotte. We've been having lots of communication with the communities that these corridors serve, making sure that they're aware that we are scoped and we are fully underway with our step one for all 7 corridors, which is fully federally funded for that step, and seeking the necessary matches for the future steps, with step 2 requiring the 10% non-federal match, and the step 3 and beyond requiring the 20% match. So that's a conversation we continue to have with the corridor stakeholders as we advance these projects. And here's our general timeline that we're running through right now for our corridor ID process. You can see in 23, grant applications, award announcements, followed by obligation and getting the teams in place last year in 2024. And we are in the midst of the step 1 process with the intent to complete that for the majority of the corridors by the end of this year, and identifying those match sources so that we can enter into a robust service development planning process, which is step 2 in the 2025 to 2027 timeframe. This will allow us to move out of that step into Project PE and NEPA as funding becomes available. We're seeking funding through various projects through both components of the future infrastructure needed, whether it be track segments or capacity segments or safety projects like grade separations, to enable us to match against future grant opportunities to enter those future phases. We're very clear in the way that we're communicating with these stakeholders that this is not an immediate train. It takes time to go through the process of developing these corridors. Our Raleigh to Wake Forest project right now, we're targeting 2030, and also planning for extensions north of Wake Forest for future grants that are there. And that's a very mature project because we already have all of the required NEPA in place, as well as the 30% engineering funded for that segment. On the corridor ID projects, we're communicating 7 to 12 years for new service on those. And on some of them, like the more complex corridors, like Charlotte to Atlanta, may certainly be beyond that time frame due to cost and complexity. So that's an important component of what we're communicating to our stakeholders and trying to keep them engaged. 7 corridors, as I mentioned, in the corridor ID planning stage, and then again, the funding of the future phases of work is constantly part of our conversations with the various communities, with our metropolitan planning organizations, our rural planning organizations, municipalities, and the interested advocacy groups and others that are looking for trains to run as fast as possible on these corridors. I'll do a little bit of we completed 2 fairly significant feasibility studies for 2 of the corridors already. One was our Western North Carolina passenger rail feasibility study. This was an analysis of the 139-mile route from Salisbury to Asheville, connecting to the Piedmont corridor. with a 3 round trips as part of the basis of the analysis. And when we did the ridership study on this, we determined it was a very successful corridor. About 100,000 annual just local trips, just trips within the corridor itself, and then reaching 225 to 450,000 trips for those services connecting off of the corridor for folks coming to Western North Carolina from other parts of the state or the Southeast to the corridor. And one component that we found was very important for this and the other feasibility studies was the connection to the S line and the frequency and reliability and service times available at the S line. Were able to really demonstrate that the ridership opportunities on these connecting corridors was much greater by having a strong connected core route to the Southeast. The estimate in 2023 dollars was $665 million all in, which included not just the corridor improvements, but the maintenance facility, the equipment, and other infrastructure, with a 20% non-federal match of about $133 million at that level. The other analysis that we did was for Southeast North Carolina, connecting Raleigh to Wilmington, and I'll mention this, that Raleigh is, because of its sort of center place in the state, really is a connecting point of a lot of the services that we see under corridor ideas, that Raleigh would be that center connecting point, both to the S line and to these other connecting services. But Wilmington is very much along that same principle. So we've actually did evaluate 2 routes, but there was a recommendation under this analysis to take the very much shorter route through Goldsboro down to Wilmington, and also studied 3 round trips a day for this route. The estimate here in 23 dollars was $810 million, including all necessary equipment and infrastructure. And that would be the local non-federal match at $162 million. So yeah, we again, this a corridor, as I mentioned before, demonstrated that its connection to the S line was vital to ensure that local passengers had lots more destinations off of the corridor. And Danny, that brings me to the end of my slide presentation. So I'd be happy to take some questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. I have family in Wilmington, so they're very interested in that connection of the train service and visiting the rest of us in Virginia. So just, a little hint on priorities. But all joking aside, we have a lot of good questions. The first one is, with the rail crossing and safety programs, have you seen a significant decline in the number of train and automobile interactions? I know that's always a big goal of those type of programs, and something that seems to be happening more often with folks focusing on their phones versus other activities they should be doing.
So I'll say this, we've been at crossing safety for a long time, really since the early 1990s, and where we developed the Sealed Corridor Initiative, which basically looked at a comprehensive way of tackling both safety at crossings that remain and also eliminating redundant crossings. And over that period, and I don't have a slide in this deck, but we saw a precipitous drop in grade crossing accidents and fatalities through that program. We're starting to get to the point where we are through our more mature program. We're seeing maybe lesser impact on a per investment basis, but as we make smart investments like to our core, increasing frequencies of the train frequencies and doing projects like the S line, which will both increase frequency and speed, we're building elements of that same crossing safety program into it. The S line is going to be fully grade separated, and so we're trying to make sure we don't ever get to an uptick, return to an uptick in those types of incidents as we deliver our program.
Thank you. And one of the questions that I think we've got it asked a couple times. Has North Carolina owns the S line portion, or do y'all own the S line portion in North Carolina? I know Virginia owns our section.
Right. So we are in the final stages of engagement with the Freight Railroad on that transaction. So that is definitely in play and a cornerstone of our current project.
Okay. And is S line under a design build procurement method?
That's an excellent question.
One of our engineer friends or construction friends asked that question.
Well, the way I'll answer that question is we're in a process right now of we have a little bit of we're waiting on obligation of some of our funding to make sure we can go into the phase of the work where we'll be able to answer some of those questions. The delivery method that we intend to use will require us to look at alternative delivery methods to just design, bid, build, just based on speed. The question will be at which point in design will we move to a design build or a construction management general contract CMGC or other type of delivery method that is most effective for the individual components of the work.
Okay. And another question is, what is the status of the restoring loops from Salisbury to Asheville? Given I think Helene had some issues or caused some challenges down there. And
yeah, Helene did definitely do some damage in North Carolina. It really took out about 200, almost 200 miles or more of rail corridor in our state, affecting a major short line partner, Blue Ridge Southern, as well as Norfolk Southern and CSX's routes in the Asheville and Spruce Pine area. Norfolk Southern is what they've told us is they are in the final stages of bringing in service from the Tennessee side, and expect that service into Asheville to be fully in service, I think, by the March 31, with train service being restored shortly after there. They are still officially evaluating the eastern connection, down the mountain between Old Fort and Asheville. That obviously is something we're watching with great interest because that is both a major connection for all western traffic in North Carolina that would connect to eastern traffic, as well as our corridor ID project in that area. We're still waiting an official word on exact timing from Norfolk Southern on that piece.
Okay. And another question we got is, what are the infrastructure improvements for a 6 Piedmont service between Charlotte and Raleigh?
Well, they're generally tied to that program I mentioned that we're working with NS and NCRR on what they call the CAP fee program. So just to give a little more detail on that, there's a siding we are looking at in the Elon area between Elon and Burlington, a siding in the Hillsborough, North Carolina area, as well as some double track to the between Cary and Morrisville that we're looking as part of that. Those and the safety projects I mentioned, the rail replacement projects, that is the bulk of what is needed to bring about that additional frequency. But that's something we're continuing to work with both NC and Norfolk Southern and North Carolina Railroad Company on.
Okay. And one that I was also kind of interested in, when is the new Charlotte Gateway expected to be open? When can I catch it? A train to go see the Panthers and Commanders play down in North Carolina.
Yes. Well, I mean that I cannot tell you something that is more has more passion by the leadership in our organization than getting that train to there. We're hopeful that that's something we'll see in the next 2 years, having actual boardable opportunities at that location. That is very much a topic of conversation between us and the city of Charlotte.
Okay. And another train station question. What is the status of a new train station in Lexington, North Carolina?
Right. We're engaged with Lexington. They are leading an effort to bring about a station there that through a build grant that they received. So we are working with them, working with them on the design, and as well as Norfolk Southern and NCR on the implementation of that design. The actual time frame for delivery is still under development, but again, hopefully soon. But that is very much a point of engagement and priority for us as well.
Um, and one of our members of our Commonwealth Transportation Board and a strong rail advocate asked, I understand there's no funding committed to the S line beyond the Wake Forest to Petersburg section of the Virginia. So is this likely to be a passenger rail corridor in the next 20 or more years? And I'll also take a crack and say the IIJA funding is exhausted at the end of 26. So please contact your representatives and let them know that we need a robust federal funding program to continue, and that this should not be a one-off. We need a strong federal partner for programs like the S line. I don't know. Hopefully that encompasses it. It all comes down to money, right?
It does, and I'll say something that most folks in this call know is that rail, and I'm talking about rail generally, with the exception of some transit-based systems, rail transit-based systems, do not receive any federal formula funding. There's no funding that's just distributed to states like there is for highways and aviation and other types of programs. So everything is discretionary and competitive in that space. What I will say is, the project has got a lot of merit, and certainly it has won on its merit. The funding that it has been receiving has been won purely on its merits for safety, mobility, and economic impact. So we certainly hope to see, as those opportunities continue to move forward, we're going to be doing all the engineering necessary to get us to that level, as all the way up to Richmond. That will allow us to continue to be competitive and apply for those future grant opportunities.
Thank you. And when is the passenger rail from Charlotte North to Lake Norman anticipated to start?
Right. So that's not a project that we have oversight over. That is that's actually CATS, the Charlotte Area Transit System project, what they call the Red Line. I don't have a specific date for you on that project, but I know that is certainly one that is very active by the city.
And one of the ones that we've gotten a lot from the advocacy community is, have y'all analyzed any impact? I know the idea that Amtrak should be privatized has been kind of floating around a lot lately. Have y'all analyzed the impact to the Piedmont and Carolinian service should that happen?
Well, what I'll say is, our services, like all the other services across the nation that partner with Amtrak to provide service, are dependent on some very important things that Amtrak does. One is provide a national equipment pool, two, provide a national ticketing system, and three, provide the experience of a broad network of labor that knows how to run trains. And so a stable Amtrak obviously is very important to our system. We're watching that conversation with interest, but certainly the stability of Amtrak as a partner, as a critical partner to all of the states, is important for us as we move forward.
And then the final question, I know you're short on time. When will additional stops on the Piedmont be implemented? I think they saw all the different new stations and very excited.
Right. Well, again, that's largely dependent on the development of those individual station projects. And we are, actively working on that. It's a consideration as we plan for future services. There's not a specific date or timeline right now. We're working through some very complex issues with the railroads, as you can imagine, to deliver service to those locations, but definitely work that we have team members and staff that are doing something every day on those projects to bring them to fruition.
Excellent. Well, Jason, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation and incredibly interesting and informative. And looking forward to helping you in North Carolina and connecting with Virginia and vice versa. And thank you to everybody for joining us today. And as a reminder, we'll put this out on YouTube shortly. And thank you all, and have a great rest of your week and beautiful, hopefully, weekend coming up right around the corner. Thank you. Have a great day.